UFC 309 is coming up. New York. I don't know if y'all have heard of this. Jon Jones is fighting he's fighting Stipe Miocic. Right. Okay. Interesting. Well, first of all, before we even jump into these awards, how do y'all feel about the card? I mean, it's actually kind of a sneaky good card. Kind of. I mean, I don't know. Frankie, what you think?
He's so excited. He was telling us earlier. He just can't contain it. That's literally written all over his face.
Yeah. A little bit.
Are you going to watch the
So
card?
leave it there. What did my mama say? If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Something like that.
Yeah.
Leave it there. It's fine.
CJ,
Do you know what? I will say this here. The matchups, I think we're gonna get good fights, but certainly like name value wise, it's not what it could have been.
True. Definitely. CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, no, when I don't spend so much time looking at UFC stuff, I'm always pretty much excited. So it's an okay card. I like it. I'm excited about a few fights, so there's some I could have done without, but those are usually the ones that end up surprisingly good. So
Hopefully.
excited. I'm also excited for it to just be over, much like everybody else.
Yeah.
Just let's go, man. We got shit to do.
So we got 5 awards to I guess prognosticate, to guess and see if this is going to be the award. Don't do that.
But that sounds like a procedure or some shit. I was like, oh.
We brought him in for a prognostication.
Oh shit.
So we're gonna give some pre-awards. So you know what? I'm gonna start with, instead of starting at the top. I was gonna start with the one, but I'll start at the bottom. This is the one that normally gets me in trouble. So the first one is the time to get a beer award. So this goes to the most boring fight of the night. Oh, man, I'll go to you, CJ. What do you think will be the most boring fight of the night? I mean, I know people default to a women's fight, but what do you think is gonna be the most boring fight?
Yeah, so if we get those out of the way, because I mean, anyway, I think it could be Tybora and Denise. Just you never know with heavyweights, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. Yeah, because a lot of times they get sloppy, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Especially with Tybora and that haircut. Like that haircut alone, you have to get something negative for that haircut, because it's despicable. Frankie, what do you think is going to be the most boring fight of the night?
Yeah, I didn't pick a female fight for this one. I actually think the women's fights on here are all right. You know, I think Veronica Hardy's decent. Like she puts on pretty decent scraps, and I do actually like the women's fight in the middle of the card. You know, I'm a Natalia Silva fan, and I think Vivian Araujo is a very good opponent as well. So I'm going to stay away from the female fights for this one and go against my nature. I've got a few candidates for this. Well, two are mainly sticking out to me. I've got Miller versus Jackson. I think could potentially be one. And the second one is Weidman versus Anders. Those two fights are very much in the middle place of the card. So I have a very strange feeling that there might be a little bit of a lull at that point. You know, when you get that weird zone in a card where you're not quite through with the prelims yet, but you're not quite close enough to the main event, and there's a little bit of a lag. Usually where people go to get beverages. Out of those two, I'm probably going to side with Weidman and Anders. I just have a feeling that Weidman is going to spend the majority of the fight keeping him up against the cage and seeing things out that way. Because I think Anders just has a bad tendency of not being able to break out of those situations. So I think Weidman will take the path of least resistance and pretty much violate him against the fence. That's what I'm going for. It's going to be very dull for us all to witness. Very.
That's the one that I was going to pick too. I think both of these fighters are in the twilight of their career. If anything, Weidman came back to prove a point, to show that he could come back from that terrible injury. It wasn't necessarily to move up and claim a belt, because I think he's way past that at this point. But yeah, it's It's a retirees fight. So I think that it's going to be pretty lackluster. Now watch this be like a nasty, ridiculous, crazy fight, but
I was
I
gonna
don't think
say
so,
Chris
man.
Weidman is literally a coin cost. Like you never know what the hell
A
he's gonna
toin
throw up.
cost. I
Never know
miss
what the
the
hell
old
he's gonna
toin
throw up
costs.
there. Yeah, I think
Coin
it's so
toss.
like prominent to me right now because I'm playing Pokemon Go and Pokemon Go, Pokemon TCG, and there's a lot of Pokemon when you play, their attacks are dependent on literally a coin toss. So I keep thinking about that damn coin toss.
It's a classic. It's a classic.
It's a classic.
All right, so the next one is the Upper Room Award. So this one is the knockout of the night. This could go a lot of different ways. This could go a lot of
Yeah.
different ways. But yeah, I'll go to you first, Frankie. What do you think? Who would you think would have the knockout of the night?
Yeah, this is one that I really struggled with as well. I had like 3 candidates that stood out. I think Denise is a good shout for potentially bonging out Tybura, but then alternatively he could get wrestle fucked to a decision as well. So I'm not going to go with that. Bo Nickel, I think, might knock Paul Craig's head into the moon, but it's Paul Craig, so who really gives a shit? Rufy is another obvious one as well. I think the fighting nerves they're obviously on a crest of a wave, and I'm kind of glad that I was one of those guys who brought that stable up a little bit early. The evidence is there. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'm actually going to throw one out of left field, and I'm going to will this one into existence. And I'm going to go with Stipe Miocic, flatlining Jon Jones and making this
Man.
the year to remember for me. I'm
With
going
his
with
with his cane or
I mean, whatever he needs to do to get it done, I'm very comfortable with, because it's as long as it ends in Jon Jones having those crosses in his eyes and his butt in the air for the second time that night, I'll be
Oh no.
ending the night happy. I feel like I need to say it as many times as I can to kind of will it into existence. And if it does happen, I'm going to look like a genius.
Oh yeah,
Whereas
you
if I'm
will
wrong,
for
it's
sure.
like, well, he predicted that. I'm taking that approach. I'm
What
going
do
old
you
man
think,
Stevie.
CJ?
yeah, I had a few different ways of going to. I mean, Chandler could Chandler could come back in his frail
Chandler versus
state
Chandler.
and get a knockout, But
Mhm.
I don't know. I was kind of looking at Jonathan Martinez or Marcus McKee.
Mm-hmm.
They're both sneaky. They both have pretty sneaky good power, but I might go Jonathan Martinez via most ridiculous knee ever.
That's interesting. That's
Not a bad
interesting.
one.
Yeah, I wonder what the line is on that. I bet you could get a pretty good return on that too. On
I'd say
Jonathan
so.
Martinez by knockout. It's got to be crazy. I am gonna go with. This one's tough because y'all mentioned a lot of good ones. I think I'm gonna go with Marcus McGee. I'm gonna go the opposite side of that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Marcus McGee. I rate him very very highly. I think that he's gonna do some pretty interesting things in the division. I don't know if he'll win a belt or anything like that, but I think that he's gonna be a formidable opponent. Not only for Jonathan Martinez, but in the future. So I think that Martinez is a little bit too conservative. And I think that Marcus McGee is not going to allow him to be conservative. And I think he's going to find his chin, knock him out.
I
So,
like Mickey a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he does look just like, what was it, Small Soldiers? Have y'all
Oh,
seen
he
that?
looks exact. He does. Now that you mentioned it, I was.
Was it
When
a
you've got it somewhere in your
Gorgonite?
mind, and you're like, what does he look
Yeah,
like? It's
looks
that.
just like that thing.
It is.
Just like it.
Yeah.
His wife actually printed him up and made merch out of it.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing for real. All right. So the next one is They Out Here Scrapping. So this one goes to Fight of the Night, which could be one that we already just talked about. Yeah. CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I was actually, in between three, well, four probably obvious ones besides Martinez and McGee, Rufy. I mean, Jim Miller and Damon Jackson, it could be. Damn. I don't know. I might go take the easy route and go Oliveira and Chandler, though. That's kind of a guaranteed.
Pretty much is. They should just walk out and just give them bonus checks on the way out because they're going to get it.
Yeah.
Frankie, what you think?
Yeah, that one was high for me as well. The only reason why I didn't plump for that one is because I don't expect it to go. Is it 5 rounds, that fight? I mean, I don't see why it needs to be, but
Yeah, I
just
think
out of
it's scheduled for
curiosity.
5 rounds. I don't think it makes it past 3.
Yeah, I don't think it makes it out of 2. Like, so when I was thinking about this, I was kind of like, what fight is most likely going to go the distance and be like a war? So that was one that I considered. I secretly think that Jones and Miocic is going to go the distance, and that it's going to be close. I have a weird feeling that Miocic is going to show out really well and maybe even potentially get Dominic Reyes. I have a really strange feeling that that might be the way it goes. Like, people forget, I know Stipe's old as hell, but people forget how good that guy is. I've gone with one we talked about earlier, though. Bantamweight's my favorite division. I think it's the most skilled, and I think the matchup that they've got at bantamweight here is 2 guys that are very evenly skilled, and I can see them going at it. So I'm gonna plump for McGee and Martinez. Like, I think they're both very good fighters. They're both durable. They're both hard as nails, and I like the stylistic matchup as well. Martinez is good with the leg kicks. McGee is good with those straight punches. I can see it being stylistically interesting. And I think they're going to have a fucking scrap. I'm going to go for those 2. I like that fight.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good one.
Martinez's
So
leg kicks are so nasty.
the whole crew, all of them, Chris Gutierrez, like their whole crew have terrible leg kicks. Terrible. I kind of I thought about going with the McGee and Martinez fight because I do think it's going to be a pretty good fight until it ends. But I'm going to go Basel Hafez versus Oban Elliott. I think that fight's going to be pretty good until it ends. Also, I think the Oban Elliott knocks him out, but I think Basel Hafez is better than what he showed in his last fight. He had a good showing against JDM when he filled in short notice. I think he brings that guy back and gives Oban a lot to deal with. But I think that Oban is just better. But I think that that's going to be a really good fight. So I think that's going to be fight of the
I
night
like that
early.
one. I like that. That's a dark horse one right there, and probably no one's going to watch it as well. So no one's going to
Probably
know.
I'm
not.
gonna be honest. When you said, I thought you were making some shit up. I was like, what is a Basel Hafiz? The fuck? Yeah, I'm gonna have to check some of his fights out. I don't. Maybe just one of those things where
You got to
He's
see
only
watch
had
you
the
2.
forget.
JDM one.
He fought JDM, and then he fought Mickey Gall, and it was a very, very tight. He won, but I had him. I remember having him on the bet slip, and I was like, I don't know if this guy won.
Yeah,
And that's
I gotta
Mickey
watch it.
Gall.
I kind of think Mickey may have won that fight, but I think
Mickey
that
may have won that fight.
I think that the person that fought JDM for his opportunity, I think that guy shows up again, because that guy gave JDM some problems, and we know
Yeah,
how
that
high
actually
JDM
won.
is.
Yeah, it won fight of the night. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
yeah,
Very
it's
good fight.
pretty solid, pretty solid,
Yeah.
pretty solid. All right, so this next one is I'm sorry I wasn't familiar with your game. Goes to the most surprising performance. So I'll go to CJ. Who do you think will give the most surprising performance of the night?
I think this one was kind of weird for me, but I don't know that a lot of people are paying attention to Rufy like that, just because everything else coming out of that camp. So I'm actually gonna go Rufy. I thought about Veronica Hardy, just kind of like she might do something. She might do something here, but I think it's gonna be Rufy. He's on like a bigger card, and there's gonna be a lot of eyeballs on this one. So
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Frankie.
I like it. Yeah, this is another one that kind of you're gonna maybe be surprised by my choice in this one. I was considering Paul Craig, but then the more I think about it, I just think he's going to get battered. Stipe is somebody that I mentioned as well. I do need to give a shout out to him. I think a lot of people are expecting Jones to just run through him, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think Stipe is going to give him a tough time. So shout out to Stipe. I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm actually going to go with Vivian Araujo. I'm very, very high on Natalia Silva. I think she's good. But then the more and more I've looked over.
You do know it's a Karine Silva that's fighting. So Karine is like the more grapply one. Natalia is the more Muay Thai.
Sorry, Karine Silva.
Cracky one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know she's fighting Karine Silva. Yeah. It's more that like I've looking over Karine Silva's resume. She hasn't really fought anyone that good. Like her record's very, very good. Vivian Araujo's fought everyone, and she's very, very well rounded. She's had, she's had some standout performances. I don't think her record necessarily represents how good she is. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Vivian Araujo is going to win the fight, but what I'm expecting to happen is Karine Silva's going to be on a lot of people's parlays, and I reckon she might eke out a win, but it'll be one of those ones where when we go to the judges, we're all going to be like, we don't know. It's going to be one of those ones. I think Araujo is going to be tough for her, very tough for her. I'm not saying she's going to win.
Of the fight style, or why do you think she'll be tough?
I think Araujo's very, very well. I don't think Karine's fought somebody who's as well rounded as Araujo, or as experienced, or has had. Araujo's been in there with everyone, and Karine Silva's grappling is decent, but I think she's quite a good counter grappler. Araujo is, and her striking's very decent. She doesn't excel at anything, but she's pretty good at everything, and she's very hard to get out of there. And I think it's more the fact that Karine Silva's last performance didn't really blow my socks off either. So I'm kind of like, I think this is going to be it's the hardest person she's ever faced by a considerable margin. It's her biggest test, and I think she's going to encounter some issues, is all I'll say. So I think Vivian Araujo is going to be she could be the potential like parlay destroyer of the night, is what I'm going with.
Yeah, that might happen.
I'm going with Araujo.
I'm going to go with, and the emphasis on this is surprising, but I'm going to go with Michael Chandler. And not because I think he's going to win. I'm going to go with Michael Chandler because I think that he fights differently. Instead of being a bull in a china shop and he just runs in there and just creates havoc, I think he's going to be kind of how Justin Gaethje kind of adjusted his style a little bit and started being a little bit more patient. I think he's going to be like that. Not to that extent necessarily, but like I think he's just going to be a little bit more calculated in the way that he fights, and it's going to catch everybody's attention, and it'll be surprising. I don't think that any version of Michael Chandler beats prime Charles Oliveira, but that's the question: is Charles Oliveira still prime Charles Oliveira? That's the question for me. To me, it's not necessarily what Michael Chandler can do or what he can't do. It's what Charles is able to do and who he is now. But I do think that Michael Chandler shows us a different wrinkle to his game, and he's more calculated in the way that he attacks.
Yeah, I don't hate that as a shot. And he has had 2 years to kind of think about the numerous mistakes he's made in the organization. The problem is, no amount of time is going to make you any less dumb, is my problem with Michael Chandler. And the thing is, it's like, the thing that scares me about him is like, even if he applies this wrestling game that we've all been waiting for him to do, it's not necessarily the right person to do it against. No, I think with Charles Oliveira, it might be best if he is his careless self and just catches him and sleeps him. That might be his best avenue to success, because if he does allow Oliveira to ease into the fight and try a takedown game, you don't want to be down there with him. So, I think you could be right in that he does surprise people with a different approach, and I like that. I like that as a prospect.
Yeah, I still think he loses. Let's not get it twisted. I still think he loses, but I think it's just a different way of approaching it. It'll still not be successful, but it'll be different. All right, last one. MVP of the night, the best performance of the night, the absolute best. So I'll do this one different. I'll give mine first, and then I'll go to CJ. I think the MVP of the night is actually going to be Rufy. I think it's going to be Rufy. I think he's going to do spectacular things against James, and people are going to remember that all the way into next week. They're going to be talking about it. I mean, we've already got puffed up the fighting nerds and people wearing the glasses and all that good stuff, and he's going to put a stamp on it with what he does on Saturday. So I think he'll be the MVP of the night. I don't think that Jon can be MVP based on beating somebody that people think he should beat, and I don't think that that's going to work. So CJ, what do you think?
It's hard to disagree with that there, but also, Rufy's kind of hard not to pick in this category. I would say a good follow-up would be Charles, if we're all kind of thinking along the same lines of it'll be like, fight of the night. I don't know. I do agree with what's his name? Chandler.
Beefy.
Man,
Chandler. Chandler, right.
I think Chandler is going to come out a little bit different, a little bit more calculated, versus kind of the wild style that he has. And I think Charles could show, again, that he can get to the level that he's been to many times before. So I don't know. He kind of needs to. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna go
Frankie, what do you
Charles.
got?
Yeah, for my MVP of the night, I'm going to get back down to reality a little bit. Like, given how I expect the card to end, and that's probably with Jon Jones getting his hand raised. I think the high point of the night for me is going to be, I'm going to agree with CJ. I'm going to say it's going to come from Charles Oliveira. I have a feeling that he's going to win in a way that, gives us that feeling that he gave us when he beat Chandler the first time, and then he beat Gate. Those nights when the
He would
fights were
get knocked
short, but they were
down.
fucking spectacular.
Yeah.
Man.
I have a feeling that's gonna be the high point of the night where we're like, Charles is back, and also like just I feel like I do need to point this out. Like, I really hate Michael Chandler, and I hate the fact that he's 2-3, and that he still has a high ranking. When he says his little "see you at the top" catchphrase, I kind of feel like sticking an ice pick in my eardrum. I despise it. I think he's so cringe. And so, like, the combination of the love that I have for Charles and the way that he often wins when he does win, and the pure hatred I have for Michael Chandler, and the fact that that will be the final part of the night when I'm smiling, I have to go with Charles Oliveira.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason. Man. So I still think that, and maybe I don't know. I've never heard anybody say this, but to me, Charles Oliveira, his title fights, if you just put all of his title fights just in a little playlist, like, he might have the most exciting list of title fights that we've seen. Barring, Alex Pereira's had some pretty exciting ones too. But like, I can't think, because a lot of other people's title fights are either just super dominant and kind of what you expected, but his has a whole story arc to him. Like, he gets knocked down, and then he has to fight his way back into the fight, and then he wins miraculously. Like, his is like you would see in a movie. Whereas, if you look at GSP beating somebody, like, okay, you beat him
It's
up
very
with a
cerebral.
jab over 5. Yeah, you beat him up over 5 rounds. You're better than them, clearly, but like, Charles's is just so exciting. Yeah, I wish we had that.
That would really make this card special for me if we get a glimpse of that old Charles. And again, it's this willing it into existence type thing. I just really want to see it happen, because there's something just innately lovable about Charles Oliveira. You very rarely find any fan of the sport, who's like, fuck Charles Oliveira. Like, you don't really get that. He's just such a likable person. Yeah, he doesn't generate a lot of hate, and for good reason. Whereas most fighters in the sport are very polarizing, and just he doesn't have that element to him. And he brings it.
Yep.
And he's gone through the fire. Like, he was in the UFC when he was 20 years old. Fought pretty much everyone. He's had extreme lows where he wasn't expected to amount to anything. So to achieve what he did is what makes the sport great, I guess.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.